Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Scrimba Tuesday Town Hall. We are back again on YouTube this week and quite a lot to do today. But just before we start, you can let me know in the chat that you can hear me loud and clear. I think you should be able to. And yeah, then we're going to make a start. So this week, we are going to be talking to Matt Lawrence, actually, from HTML All the Things podcast, which I will come to in just a moment. I also want to mention a new feature of Scrimba, which you might have seen something about today. It was mentioned by Pear on Discord in the announcements channel, because we do have a new AI feature that we're going to talk just a little bit about. And apart from that, we're going to have a bit of time for all of your questions as per normal. Hopefully people are not just going to ask about when the Next.js course is coming, because it will be exactly the same answer as you got last week. But yeah, feel free to ask anything else. And of course, we'll be putting questions to our guest as well. So let's just see how many people we have got in as we speak. Okay, that's cool. So people are coming in bit by bit still. It does take a little bit of time to build up the numbers. Perhaps I'm just going to pop that message over in Discord just to give everybody the link, because I think some people might be waiting over there. And close that one. Okay, here we are. We've got some people coming in now. That's a bit better. So we've got Sunil here. Hi, Sunil. Good to have you here. And Gazer from Uganda. Yeah, do let us know where you are tuning in from. That's always good to hear. And we've got Mike at HTML All the Things. I believe we're talking to his business partner in just a moment. And we've got Jubilani and Logan. Good to have you here, everybody. Thank you for joining. So let's get down to business. So we have got with us this week Matt Lawrence from HTML All the Things podcast, which you might well have heard of. So Michael LaRocca, who is pretty big in the Scrimba community, has actually been writing blog articles, I believe, for the HTML All the Things site for quite a while, I believe. So it's quite likely that you've come across HTML All the Things. Also, Bob and myself have been guests on that podcast. So maybe you caught our episodes. We might drop a link to them a little bit later. Matt has got something like a decade of experience running a web dev agency, and that's taken him through things like the trends in responsive design, serverless computing, the rise of no-code tools. So really, yeah, quite a lot of industry insight going on there. As I say, Bob and I have been on the podcast. It's really good to return the favor. So let's bring in Matt. Hello, Matt. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing? Thanks for that introduction.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. You are in Canada, right?
That's right. Ontario, Canada. That's right.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for joining us. Really cool to have you here. I don't know where to start, really. I mean, I want to talk a bit about like where you think the industry is at the moment, where you think we're heading, perhaps a little bit about where you've come from and how you got into podcasting and content creation, and yeah, basically all of that stuff. But we might sort of just start off with the podcast, because I guess that's what people will have known you for so far. And yeah, tell us a bit about it. How did it start off? And while you're doing that, I will drop a link to the website in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So it actually started with another podcast. So I do just a for fun gaming podcast with my friends, and still do it. It's been over 10 years now, I believe. And then we were, Mike and I, we work at an agency. So Mike's my business partner. He's in the chat. So hi, Mike. He's my business partner and also co-host on HTML All the Things podcast. And, we run the agency, but the agency is obviously project based. So as you do projects, you'll have these lulls where it's like, hey, we're waiting on someone to approve a budget, or maybe there's just no projects this month, things like that. And that's normal. That comes with the territory of the industry. However, it is kind of a downer when you're like, hey, we're all fired up to work and then there's nothing to do, or you're kind of worried like, hey, hopefully that budget comes through. So we decided, you know what, we want to kind of do something that we can do that we control. So it's our thing. And we came up with HTML, all the things, and it's something that we can put as much or as little work in it as possible, whenever we can, basically. And it was originally, the idea was just a website. But then I took my, 10-ish years of podcast experience, maybe like 7-ish years back then or so. And I thought, you know what, like we kind of need like a mainstay bit of content where, when we get busy with contracts and things, we're not going to be able to write guides and really kind of make those other resources, but we will be able to join a quick call because we already join a sync call every week, or like every maybe twice a week or so, once a week at the time. And so it's like, why don't we couple that with my podcast experience and have like a mainstay bit of content that comes out each week? And so that's where the podcast comes in. So HTML the Things podcast was born, I think, in, I want to say June-ish of 2018. Don't quote me on that. But I don't think we were doing it weekly at the time. It was just sort of like, maybe we'll do this every other week or whatever, just kind of getting the feel for it. But now it is a weekly show, sometimes twice a week. We'll do episodes every Tuesday. They release on Tuesday. And then if we have an interview with somebody, generally that interview will release on what we call like a bonus or an interview day, which is on Thursday. We don't always have interviews. Usually we just like cover topics, and we cover topics specific for web development, web design, as well as small business. And we try to keep it junior focused as much as possible. Some topics, of course, kind of start getting into the point where it's like, even if you simplify it, it's just like, hey, you need a little bit of experience, you need some prerequisites. But we try to keep it kind of like two buddies talking about web development and try to keep the show grounded in that way.
Nice, cool. Do you think it kind of helps professionally as well? Does it kind of focus you to keep abreast of what's going on, trying out new things? Or is it more like it's a side effect? You're kind of just using the knowledge you've got anyway, just as another kind of way to well, ultimately promote your business and make money.
Totally. It absolutely helps on the professional side and the personal side as well. I'm kind of it's weird. I'm like into tech, but I'm like kind of a tech shut-in sometimes. So what'll happen is I'll kind of get into a certain groove. I'll like, this is my stack, or like, this is my software that I use. And then I kind of stick with that forever. Or this is how I use my Windows. Like a famous one, which is just sort of more funny than serious, is my Windows taskbar was styled as the Windows 98 one until it couldn't be by default anymore, until Windows 11 came around. So it's kind of like I get stuck in those ruts. And so someone like Mike, who will actually go out and kind of seek new technologies, or if I need to write the show notes for that week, I'll need to seek new technologies or at least bump up against them. And then I'll actually like see new tech and be like, oh, this is cool. That's cool. This is cool. And it has absolutely helped us on the professional side. We've started working with a bunch of different no-code tools. We started working with a bunch of random plugins and things like that. And Mike started using a bunch of coding tools as well, largely attributed to having researched for no other reason other than for the podcast, and then being like, whoa, this is cool. What is this? And then you'll kind of start putting it into your own workflow, or putting it into our own workflow.
Cool. How did you actually get into the industry originally? What's your backstory?
So Mike and I actually went to college together. We went to a local college here. It's called Mohawk College, for computer engineering technology, which is basically kind of qualifies you to be a technologist. And they touch on software, they touch on hardware, they touch very little on web. Now, web was kind of newish at the time. But like obviously the web wasn't new, but getting like seriously into web development wasn't like too crazy at that time. Web apps were just kind of starting to be like a mainstay at the time. So we started there, and then we kind of just kind of built our own, or rather we wanted to build our own IT business. So we had done a lot of co-ops. So our program afforded us really great work terms. So we had to work in different industries. So I actually worked at BlackBerry at the time. Mike worked somewhere else. And when we came back to school for our school semesters, in between the work semesters, we were like, you know what, like we could do this IT thing and we could maybe do it for ourselves. And we were actually given an opportunity by a client at the time that was like, you know what, I have a whole bunch of people that I can actually work with, or that I do work with, that need websites. So why don't you guys like advertise websites to them? And so we were like, you know what, maybe we'll do that. So shortly after graduation, we kind of took that on, specifically the learning, because the project hadn't started yet. We took on the learning of how to make a website, and we were like, you know what, this is pretty in depth. Maybe we could make this our main gig. And so we did work with that person. We didn't get the full opportunity, of course. It's just how business deals go. We didn't get the full opportunity with them, but we had a great relationship with them for a number of years. And they kind of kickstarted us and kind of pushed us into learning web development. And then we started doing web development instead of IT. We did a little bit of IT during that learning, but we just figured that web development was just kind of better for us. We were having success at it, and so we stuck with it.
Okay, cool. And it's obviously really worked, because here we are now. And
yeah.
And actually, I mean, even the podcast is now going into its 7th year then, if you started in 2018. So that is pretty impressive.
Thank you.
we used to run a podcast actually here at Scrimba. When I say we used to, we kind of called time on the first season of it after, I think, about 120 episodes or so. And yeah, hopefully it will come back at some point in the future. But for now, if you've got a hole in your podcast life, you can check out Matt and Mike's podcast. And I did drop the link in there earlier. And I see some people have already checked it out, including Agesa. So that's cool. There's always a danger of dropping a link when you're on a live stream. People will obviously navigate away. But hey, that's life. NCG89 says, I stayed in Discord way too long. Yes, sorry, I maybe did not make it clear enough in Discord that we would be on YouTube. But hopefully everybody has found us now. And we will, just like before, we will be leaving this up on the YouTube channel. Last week, when it was just a bit of a Q&A between me and Bob, those ones will stay on YouTube for about 36 hours, just so people have got a chance to watch them, whatever time zone they're in. But when we've got somebody on from outside of Scrimba, when we have a guest on, we will leave those up on YouTube. So if anyone has missed this, then they will be able to catch up with it later, no problem, which is really, really cool. Let's just check out if we have got any other questions coming in. I mean, this is a big one, and it's all over the headlines today. It's all about DeepSeek. Vishwanath says, DeepSeek destroyed web development industry. There is a question mark on the end of that, which is at least optimistic. I think Sunil has got a similar question. What's your thoughts on DeepSeek R1? Will it impact the job market? I don't know. Now, we've seen quite a few of these things kind of promise it's the end of the world, it's the end of civilization as we know it. We're still here. What are your thoughts on these latest developments from China?
I think that it introduces some interesting competition into the marketplace. At this point, people are saying rip all the other companies that we've been working with, Gemini, or all the LLMs, I guess we've been working with, like Gemini, OpenAI's suite of tools, things like that, like ChatGPT, obviously mainly. To me, I think that overall AI is going to shape the industry. I've actually recently had a kind of off-air meeting about this, of how what do we think is going to happen in 10 years, and I've kind of had a while to think about that, and I think that right now it's going to be really difficult to estimate that, because Nvidia, for example, was in terms of the stock market, was like a mainstay of AI, and then this comes in, and I heard yesterday, not that I track it too much myself, but I heard yesterday that Nvidia stock was starting to suffer because of DeepSeek and this and that. And then someone else told me, and this was just a friend that told me this, that actually DeepSeek is using the NVIDIA hardware to run. So it's kind of like, what's going on here? And so my point is to kind of gather all that up, is I feel like we're still in the Wild West right now. I feel like if you were to compare this to smartphones, we are at the point in which everybody is making a different smartphone each month, each week, each day, whatever you want to say, on their release cycle. And so you're going to get a bunch of different people come in, and you're going to get a whole bunch of different attempts at AI. So, for example, right now, in 2025, and probably years prior as well, smartphones have become just sort of a slab of glass, and maybe there's some plastic and aluminum changes in there, and there's a little bit of variance. But at the end of the day, whether you buy the budget phone or the high-end phone, you're either getting a slower or faster of the same package. So the thing which is the smartphone. The product has been standardized. I feel as though we're not there with AI yet. And so estimates are going to be, crazy different, because if you ask somebody 3 weeks ago, before all this DeepSeek open source stuff, I think that their estimates would be way different. Now, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, it's the end of days for, NVIDIA, or it's the end of days for this, or it's the end of days for that, and all the speculation. And it's like, that came up seemingly in one day. And so it's to me, it's more exciting than scary. Of course, you're going to be a little scared, like, oh no, am I going to be replaced? Like, that's totally a valid concern. But I think that at the end of the day, with AI stuff, we're just in the pioneering age. We're at the point where people are going to try new things. Like, I was talking to a friend just yesterday about how, the UX of AI is kind of weird, where every single app I open, like if I open any of the Office suite or the Microsoft 365 suite, Copilot pops up there. And I'm thinking to myself, why isn't there one Copilot? Like, why am I, like, they're connected, but there's Copilot all over the place? Or when I try to open Sora, at least last time I tried a few weeks ago, it's in the app, it's listed there, but it just opens the web version and things like that. And so, like, AI, just from a UX perspective right now, still hasn't even been fully sort of figured out. So to me, it's too early of a time. It's a great thing to watch. I think it's going to be super interesting. And in terms of, like, if we talk directly about web development, I absolutely will use AI to help me troubleshoot things, to come up with new like programs, to come up with scripts. I'll ask how to, like, interface things. So a lot of the work that I do is with medium to small business clients, and I have to interface a lot, very, very frequently, with other tools like an Elementor, like a WordPress, like a Webflow, things like that. And I'll have to extend or interface with them. And sometimes it's not immediately clear how to do that. And asking AI is a great question. It's a good question to ask AI, rather than asking Google in a traditional Google search, and then having to, like, sift through like 3 Stack Overflows and two Reddit posts. And like, I'd prefer for the AI just to kind of tell me the answer, because, I'm trying to get this script done. I'm trying to get this work done. So I think that at this point, it's totally going to shape the industry. I think that right now, my current thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to learn these tools. I'm going to watch them. I'm going to see what's useful, what isn't. I'm going to fully acknowledge the fact that, like, what I'm using today may completely change next year, may completely change by the end of this year. And just be aware of that. And also, just kind of as a final note, as an entrepreneurial note, I suppose, is that all these things that come in and upset the market, generally speaking, are usually good, meaning they're good for competition. Like, if OpenAI is kind of like, and this is just me assuming, if, let's say, like, OpenAI decides, you know what, we're on top and we're just going to stay here, and I don't think that's what they're doing, but if that's what they were doing, someone comes in and says, no, I have something better. I have, the version 2 of what you did. All of a sudden it's like, now we got to go. We're going to make version 3. And, like, that's just better for the consumer. Like, why would we want to sit at version 1 or version 2 when we could have version 3, 4, 5? So competition's good. And I just think that the industry right now is just going to be volatile, and it's still being pioneered.
How do you, or I mean, there may be no answer to this question, but how do your clients feel about AI? Are they kind of like approaching you and saying, like, hey, we're suspicious of AI, we don't want any AI generated code on our site? Or are they saying, like, you should be able to do this quicker because now you've got AI? Are they asking you if you use AI, or is it just kind of flying over their head and they don't care? And sorry, just while you answer that, my camera is going to just disappear while I sort out the light, because I think I'm looking quite dark now. It's getting dark here.
No worries. No, yeah. So I totally have an answer to that right now. So we have a kind of a variety of different answers. So we've actually had one person who we were not quite working with yet. We were kind of in the prospecting stage, and I explained to them, how much things were going to cost and that type of thing. And they just decided, they said, you know what, I'm just going to try it with ChatGPT. They decided to do it themselves with ChatGPT. So that's a little scary, but it was sort of a simpler project. So fair enough. I have another client who's very, very into it. He absolutely loves ChatGPT. It's revolutionized his whole workflow. And it's to the point where he's not asking me, hey, can you go faster, or like telling me to go faster. What he's doing is he's actually, like, finding new workflows and he's sending them to me. So when I have a meeting with this guy, I actually have not only a meeting based on the project that I'm working with him on, but I'm also getting some AI tips because he's on there all day. He's like, ChatGPT did this. I think it can scan this. Let's try this. This is a different prompt. And it's like, great. I have someone basically researching some prompt engineering just for me, which is fantastic. And I have totally used some of his tips. And then other clients are just kind of silent on it, or they don't mention it specifically with me. Like they'll mention, oh, I'll get like an AI to do this, or you'll notice they'll use AI tools. Like if you go to a meeting and you'll see their like AI companion come in to like, write notes or maybe record the episode, whatever the different AI sort of companions in virtual meetings do. So you'll see them using it, but they don't come up to me and be like, hey, Matt, like, are you using this? Like, it's just sort of like, hey, yo, do these work orders and then thank you. So
okay. Yeah. I guess it's one of those things that just becomes more and more normalized, and soon it will stop being special, but it will still be there in some form or other. But yeah, that's interesting about the sort of various reactions you get to it. I think probably around Scrimba, most of the reaction we get from the community is concern, really, and concern for it taking jobs. We always think that, you can't predict that right now. You can't say that's going to happen. But, of course, there are plenty of other uses for it. And today, actually, we did launch an AI feature on Scrimba. It's something that we haven't done before. And it's been around, the concept has been around in the edtech scene for ages. I mean, I remember doing courses years and years ago where when you've completed your answer, it's going to tell you if you're right or wrong based on some kind of unit test they're running in the background. But what we've done today is we've just brought some AI testing. So now our students, and we're starting off pretty small, we're just in beta at the moment, but when our students answer, well, they don't answer a question, actually, they complete a challenge. And when they've completed that challenge, AI is going to assess whether that challenge is actually being successfully completed or not. And it's going to give them some prompts to help them. So I'm pretty excited about that. And just because we're on that topic, I'm just going to drop in the chat a Discord link to a post by Pear, which is all about that new feature. Just hopefully people will check it out after the town hall, not while we're speaking. But with these things. There we are.
That feature reminds me actually of just like how AI can be a mentor to a developer as well. Not like a replacement for a physical, like a person to talk to, but it's great to have somebody, quote unquote, somebody there all the time. Like if you're coding into the night, which people do, and like, your mentor is asleep, you might be like, how do you do this? That's a great little check. And so I can see students using it for the exact same kind of thing. So that's great to have it, there 24/7.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Let's just catch up with a few messages. Oh, look, Michael LaRocca has been on. He says, I heard the HTML All the Things podcast has some awesome articles on their website. They do indeed. I wonder who writes those articles. Michael, feel free to drop a couple of links to your favorites if you would like to. I'm sure people would like to read them. Yeah, Michael's had some articles at Scrimba before now, as well as many on his own site as well, I believe. What else have we got going on here? Keep in mind, DeepSeek is not better than the top-of-the-line OpenAI models. It's just significantly cheaper. Yeah, it's a fair point. People are talking as if it's a revolution in kind of AI. It's a revolution in the economics of creating AI, I guess. But even that, we don't know for sure. We're not really clear what resources have been thrown at this behind the scenes. So, yeah, we might not want to make any assumptions. My camera got worse quality. Hopefully you wrote that before I put on the other lights. Let's just see. I just got here. What did I miss? Well, we don't have to recap it all because it's going to be on YouTube. So you can just go back and watch the beginning afterwards. And I hope you do that. To be honest, I journal to ChatGPT. Maybe that's bad for data privacy, but it's helped my mental health. Yeah, no, it's a good listener. And hopefully it's not bad for your data privacy, but who knows? Who knows? And your colleague Mike has lost the data privacy battle at this point, so you might as well get something out of it. That is also fair. Oh, and look,
It reminds me of I purchased a really obscure phone one time from China, just a random phone. And I signed into it, and my one friend was all over me. He's like, "What are you doing signing into that thing?" I was like, "I got something worse for you, man. I use the fingerprint reader." So I'm like, so now if they got me, they got me. Like,
yeah, now they really have, if they have. I want to just go back a little bit to content creation. Obviously, podcasting, which we talked about. We kind of promote things at Scrimba, like learning in public, like doing a bit of what Michael LaRocca does, writing articles for perhaps your own blog or what have you. How do you find the process of actually podcasting? And perhaps more to the point, what advice would you give somebody who wanted to go in that kind of podcasting direction? And sorry, I was just going to say hi to Bob Zirol, who's just mentioned he's in the chat. So yeah, big hi to him. But yeah, how do you find that process? And what would you say to people who are thinking, yeah, I could do a bit of content creation with my newfound coding skills?
Totally. The podcast route is, really accessible these days. Like right now, I'm just on like I think it's like $120 microphone, no big deal kind of thing. And you could even use a cell phone. Like I've used a cell phone as well to record. Obviously, you're going to get varying levels of quality, but yeah, like podcasting is super accessible these days, and you can kind of take it to the sky. So like we have our own editors now. Like I used to edit the show. I no longer edit the show unless there's kind of a backlog or something needs to be done straight away. And so like, we've kind of like grown, I guess, as podcasters in that way, but you don't need to worry about that. I find a lot of people will worry about that. They go like, oh my God, I need a producer and an editor and someone to do this and that and promote. That's not really the case. I mean, if you record on your phone and it sounds okay, as long as it's not, kind of hurting anyone's ears, like a lot of people will listen. A lot of people listen still to like, AM, FM radio, and like the sound quality there is, older, obviously, like it's not like greatest. And so that's people are totally willing to listen as long as it's not kind of hurting their ears. So, I mean, totally. I think it's a great way to definitely like talk about what you're thinking about, talk about what you're doing, have a back and forth if you do have a guest or a friend who's going to help you or a co-host. I will say that I do always say to prep a fair bit. So you will notice that there's a lot of like ums and ahs if something is like an unfamiliar topic, and it's even worse if you haven't prepped at all. So like I'm a big fan of like not even like extensive prep, but like prep is in like have a show note written up where you like hit these points. And if you find yourself like, let's say you're talking about HTML for some reason specifically, and you find yourself constantly forgetting that HTML has attributes, and you keep using the wrong word, you keep calling them properties or something, fair enough. Write that in your show note, like write the right language, write the thing that your brain is hiccuping on. Don't worry about presenting that show note to the world, because then when you go to present it to the world, you can remove those personal notes. Those personal notes are something that's super simple, that some people may say that's obvious, but for others they'd be afraid to do it. And I used to not do it either. I used to just like prep in my head. I would read the notes over and over again. But when you get into sort of the flow of chatting, you forget those like little like mainstay things in your head, because you're not reading a script. So it is different. And you're still doing like a presentation. So it's different than just like a chat with somebody, unless you're literally interviewing them. So that would be my kind of main sort of like logistical tip, is totally like have a good show note, make notes for yourself in there, and just like make sure that you're prepped. Like read through the show notes, go through it a few times, because like I'm sure we have episodes where we've had to do it at the 11th hour, and there's a bunch of ums and ahs because either the topic was difficult and we weren't familiar with it, or it was brand new, even like just brand newly invented, or it's like, oh shoot, we had to do it at the 11th hour and we didn't have a lot of prep time. So prep time is huge. And also what's great about podcasts as well is it's pre-recorded. So if you go and learn a topic and you're like, you know what, like I think that making like they're deciding the difference between a class and an ID is really confusing for beginners in CSS. Like, how I kept using IDs and I should have been using classes, or vice versa. and you want to record a short podcast about that, I mean, unless you decide to do the podcast live, it is pre-recorded. So you can come up with the show notes, come up with whatever you want to make it so that you can talk about it easily. Let's say it's a solo show, you go and you record it. If you listen back and you think it's boring, I mean, then, no harm, no foul. And all you've done is gotten better at attempting to podcast. Like, you're going to get better at finding ways to like cut out dead air and things like that. And then also, if you decide to start editing your shows, you'll know what you can fix and what you can't. So, I mean, especially if you're doing a remote podcast that isn't live, or if you're doing a podcast that requires you to like ask questions that are pretty complex, that you may need to like pull up a data sheet in front of you or pull up an article in front of you, there's going to be a bit of dead air there, but in editing you can remove that. So you're going to be able to like, you're going to slowly learn like, oh, I understand there's dead air right now, but let's not, kind of rile my brain up being like, I better talk. No, a bit of dead air is fine. Find your article, then talk about it. But then in editing, you can go and fix it. So it's multifaceted, but it is just super accessible. And I think that to get started, I've talked about a lot here, but to get started, just record yourself. Either use a half decent microphone, use your phone, do it pre-recorded, like do it just on your phone. Don't be publishing it, and just see if you think it's okay. Change maybe the pace of how you talk, work on your ums and ahs if you don't want a lot of them there, and just see how it goes. I mean, no one's going to talk perfect, especially once you get going into a chat. And so any prep that you do is just going to make you better at podcasting.
Do you find that it sort of brings people to you, which you end up developing a professional relationship with of some kind? Does it open doors, or did it in the early days?
Absolutely. Yeah. We work with people, or we'll like interview people, let's say, and then I find out that they're, a great person that works on WordPress, or they're a great resource for, Webflow, or they're a great resource for Wix, or, whatever, educating devs, whatever. And what basically is like, okay, like now I have someone that I can DM, and not everyone's going to be receptive to that. Like some people are totally just going to be more of like, hey, I just wanted to kind of show up and have a chat with you, and then that's it. But many people have been totally receptive, and we've exchanged business with people where we've been like, hey, like I actually found a project here that in the agency side of things where I actually don't want to do it, or I'm not capable of doing it right now. I'm too busy. I know that you like do this stuff. Do you have bandwidth for this? And sometimes it's a no, sometimes it's a yes, but that's like an outlet where I can at the very least be like, hey, I'm going to recommend you to go with someone else. We've had people where we've had to kind of like move on from their project for one reason or another, and maybe they've needed ongoing support, and we've recommended, hey, I recommend you chat with this person, and I get their permission first to like give their number or whatever, and then I'll say, hey, I think that you'd be a great fit for this person. They work with the similar technologies. Why don't you go talk to them? And so I totally do have chats with people, at the very least, like every third day. If we were to average it out, get the numbers on it, every third day of people that I interviewed or met on social media and had a chat with.
Cool. Miss Snoobs just points out ChatGPT is great mentor indeed, but still makes mistakes. Yeah, absolutely true. You do have to verify the important information. On the privacy front, Bob has pointed out personal information. So this is from DeepSeek's privacy. The personal information we collect from you may be stored on a server located in secure servers located in the People's Republic of China. That does raise an interesting point about sort of jurisdictions and laws, and yeah, who knows? We've got all of that to iron out with AI, let alone the whole issue of whether they need to be paying royalties to the creators whose work they're training models on, etc. So yeah, there's a lot still to unfold there. A couple of other things I wanted to bring up. Oh, so yeah, Michael LaRocca has indeed dropped a few articles that people can pick up on. That's cool. That's cool. I did want to ask, actually, because people are actually often asked at the town hall, like, what's the state of the industry at the moment? Are things picking up? Are people getting hired more? It's a really difficult question to answer because people are asking us from all over the world, and most of us have really only got a close idea of what's going on in our own countries. What about in Canada at the moment? And I guess you could say that there have been, we don't do politics really at the town hall, but there have been recent events south of your border,
Oh yeah.
which
Oh yeah.
may have had some ramifications or some repercussions to your economy. I mean, is that affecting things? Are people concerned? Are people optimistic? Does the industry just carry on regardless? And are things picking up economically in general, would you say?
So for us personally, like I can't talk to like every industry in Canada. I'm no economist, but for us personally, we've been kind of firing on all cylinders. I would say since mid last year to now, and it's still going. So we've been almost like overloaded with work, which has been kind of crazy. Usually that doesn't happen. There's been a few times, obviously, if two projects clash or something, but this has been like really consistent. This is in the small to medium business space. Now we've like built our rapport up with a lot of local businesses and even some internationally as well. And so like, word of mouth and things like that do play their part. So in terms of that, like things are seemingly okay. I work with a couple local businesses here in Ontario. Some of them are small, some of them are like medium official classing, I guess you would say. And haven't been asking any questions about budget. I haven't heard anything that's like sort of signaling to me that they're in trouble. They haven't been like, oh, hey, like, can we lower the price of that? Or there's anything like that. A lot of them have just been like, oh, is it, this normal price? Okay, do it. And we'll oftentimes get a lot of negotiation back and forth, and the negotiation just hasn't even been a thing. We even have a client who doesn't even ask me how much like it is. He just sort of says like, we need this, and so do it. So, I mean, that's good. Again, like I can't comment on every industry or every business, but like for whatever we've carved out for ourselves, it's absolutely working. There is like an overlooming, like I'm not going to get into all the politics of it, but we are at the precipice of a potential trade war with the United States, potentially. I assume that's what they call it, where they're going to tariff us. We're going to do this to them. Whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know. I'll let the politicians decide that. What's right and wrong, I'll let them decide that as well. I'm no economist, but that is a bit of a concern just because that might put a damper on everything. It's possible, right? But that's also the question of almost every economic move these days, where it's like, we're going to do this to try to like boost this industry, enter in random thing here and random industry here. And then it's like, what if it takes everything down? And then everyone kind of gets scared, right? So we do have that, but this is a big bit of news. This is something where I'm definitely keeping my eye on it. Like, like, wait, what's going to happen here? Because we have had like a lot of inflation here as well, like post and maybe during COVID. I don't remember the exact dates at this point, but we have had that. So like, we'll see what happens, I suppose, with that. So it is something that's looming, but in my experience, it's just sort of looming over everything. No one knows what the full impact is going to be, and who's going to pay that bill if it even happens, right? So I think that that's sort of more of a general economic question that like I'm not fully equipped to answer, but just to kind of say what's happening. Yeah.
And on a personal note, would you ever be tempted away from the agency that you've built up to just have a regular sort of day job as a developer, joining a team in whatever, I don't know, big company, small company, or do you completely love the lifestyle of being your own boss?
I like the lifestyle of being my own boss for sure. I'm definitely in like the camp of I like to jump around a lot and do different things. Like I don't like the sort of monotony of just sort of doing something that's very samey every day. And I know that as a dev, like you'll maybe today you'll work on the UI, tomorrow you'll work on the back end. Like there's some variance there, of course. But I've experienced both, like in the past, especially during my work terms at school. I have experienced sort of IT where I was an IT team where I ran around and, worked with 20 plus buildings, and it was different every day. And I was driving around and delivering supplies one day, fixing someone's printer the next, run over here, run over there, help somebody with a server. And you're all over the place. And then I've been placed in a team where you just, sit at a desk and you work with routers and switches at the enterprise level and you do their networking. And I mean, I liked both experiences, but I preferred the one where I kind of got to run around. I'm definitely like that. And so right now, I would say that like I like this sort of lifestyle right now, because if a project goes away for some reason, maybe it just finishes and we're done it and there's not another project lined up, I can be like, you know what, okay, I'm gonna really kind of pour some gas on the fire that is HTML, all the things, and let's get this thing going, right? Let's go. Let's make some more YouTube videos or more articles or whatever. I can kind of control that. And I guess like the thing I don't like is I'm always a person who has always liked my own schedule. So I definitely don't like the idea of like, okay, get up at a certain time each day, go somewhere for a certain amount of time, come home. I understand it's a reality, like, you know, it might happen, but it's just, I prefer to just be like, you know what, like if it's 3 a.m. and I get a hankering to like finish this project because I think it'll make me sleep better that night or something, like some random motivation, or I'm like, you know what, I don't really want to work tomorrow, I'm just going to do it now. I could do that. I can just go and finish it. And that's what happened over the holidays just now. You know, just to give an actual example, is we had a lot of stuff coming in, and usually during the holidays, I stopped seeking work. I just sort of like answer emails that as they come in, but I'm kind of slow at it. Like I just kind of take it easy. And I was like, you know what, I have a lot of work to do. I'm just going to stay up and like do like a couple like 16, 17-hour days and give people so many deliverables right before Christmas that they're not going to bug me for like 2 weeks. They're not going to message me for 2 weeks because they're going to be on holidays and they're going to be like, oh, okay, we're good. You know, Matt's ahead of the game. And that's exactly what I did across like 5 or 6 clients. I just poured work into their inboxes and was like, this is complete. This is complete. This is complete. This needs approval. This is up. The list goes on. And so it worked perfect. I think one person asked a question and one person told me to simmer down. So, so yeah, it worked well for me.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like business is really booming, and yeah, I can totally relate to what you said about running around checking printers and things like that sometimes, especially I think at the beginning for people. You know, a lot of people do ask us about setting up as freelance and maybe making a freelance career. I think certainly at the beginning you do end up being someone's just kind of go-to person for IT and changing print cartridges, etc. And people don't differentiate in their heads between a web developer and I don't know, printer repairman or whatever. So yeah, I certainly found that at the early days anyway. But are you finding that your business, actually, I've got a couple of questions. Well, firstly, are you finding that your business finds you, or are you having to go and get it through sort of advertising?
Oh, that's actually a great topic because it's going to be an upcoming episode. But I'll spill the beans.
Okay.
So yeah. So right now we've really kind of established ourselves. We don't have to go on, you know, the job boards, like there's freelance job boards and things like that. We're not necessarily doing proposals. We have a set of clients that will come to us repeatedly for work, and word of mouth, other people will come to us as well. Right at the moment. What we have done, strategically speaking, is we have partnered with a local computer shop who are boots on the ground, who people, like you said, do not differentiate. A person fixes my laptop, person fixes my printer is different than person develops my website, right? Like they just have no idea. They have no context, and that's no problem. And that particular like repair shop does not make websites. So, okay, I'll partner with you. You give me leads. We work out a little bit of a deal between us, finder's fee, whatever, right? There's a common way to do it. And then that's it. So we do get some business through them, and then we'll actually get business, you know, through them. So they'll give me, you know, client A knows client B. They don't even talk to the computer shop. They go, client B, yo, you should call Matt. And there you go. So we do kind of like proactively do that. We talked to a couple computer shops, found one that worked because I do know one of the people that work there. And then, you know, off to the races. And so like partnerships like that totally work. And that's actually something I just do want to highlight is a lot of people will be worried like, okay, I have to do just the traditional ways of getting freelance clients. And yeah, I mean, sure, like we've been on freelance job boards as well. However, not everything has to be that like textbook way to do it. You can totally find other ways. Like I would consider this partnership just a little unorthodox in that like it wouldn't be on a guide online, maybe. Like not that I've looked, maybe it would be, but just like that's something where I just thought, you know what, like they're probably getting asked, and like they're probably just sending people away saying, hey, sorry, I don't do that. But they may as well get a little bit of business, and we may as well get a little bit of business. So why not? And so like little ideas like that can pan out. And I mean, the worst thing, unless you're rude to the person, so don't do that. But the worst thing that they're going to say to you is no, or like get out of my shop. So, so anything like that. So like to me, it just makes sense to sort of go after those type of leads and just kind of, it's almost like a passive lead generation, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. And people actually often ask us also about, and you did mention kind of like some of these websites, but not by name, but people often ask mostly about Upwork, obviously a big player in the field. What is Fiverr? Townhall, I guess, is more for the sort of top end of the market. But you mostly manage to leave. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of those sites. I feel like they're a bit of a race to the bottom. Everybody just trying to like be cheaper than everybody else. I don't have a lot of experience of them. But do you steer clear of them mostly or totally?
In the beginning, no. So in order to get bigger, we used a little bit of free. I don't even know if it's still around, but we used a little bit of a freelancer, like literally just the website Freelancer.
Yeah.
And I think it was just freelancer.com, and that was okay. Like we found a couple people, but it was definitely in our experience, and it was a short experience. It was definitely a lot of like race to the bottom stuff for sure. We then went on to Guru, and Guru we had more success. Although I'm not going to say that our like time with these websites have been successful. Let's say we have had some success, and then we've broken out. Maybe that's honestly the success of some of these. So on Guru, at least at the time, this was got to be over 6 years ago now. We just basically set up our portfolio. You can set up your portfolio, write down your, these are my services. This is how much per hour, things like that. That actually caught the eye of somebody, reached out to us and said, hey, I need a project done, reached out. And then it so happened that they needed some server work done. I used to do that. So I was like, hey, I could help you with your server admin. So I did their infrastructure. Mike ended up doing a lot of their coding. I stuck on until the infrastructure went to the cloud or something. I don't remember now, but they went to the cloud or something. And then I went to just work with other clients, and Mike continued along with them until the contract was completed. So like that was kind of like a breakout case, though. So yeah. I do see a lot of people where there are some businesses, at least according to their profiles, that say, hey, like 100 grand made this year on this freelance site, 100, 200 grand made this year. I'm sure there's ways to do it, but I have not had the greatest success short of breaking away from it. But the spark was on that freelance site. So I'm not going to like necessarily hold the site. Like I'd actually like accredit the site. I'd accredit, Guru for helping, right? Getting my portfolio out there. And so maybe the beginning days, like if you're a beginner, like listening to this and you're like, maybe I'll try some freelancing. I mean, if I was starting again, I would try the freelance boards too. One, it would allow me to see what people are asking for. If everyone's asking for React and I only know Svelte, then I probably should learn React. If everyone's asking WordPress, maybe I should learn WordPress, things like that. So you get a feel, you practice your writing, you practice your proposal writing, and you start that, and you practice your negotiating skills. And you're also, if the website that you're using, whichever website it is, decides to use, allows you to make that portfolio section and allows you to sort of like advertise your services in that way, then that's a totally, valid thing to do. So like look for value where it isn't immediately given sometimes. Like definitely look and say, I'm a nobody. Like I haven't started freelancing. Like no one knows who I am unless I put a sign out, outside my apartment or my house. No one knows who I am. So it totally makes sense for you to say, okay, I'm going to scatter shot and just kind of like go. Oh, I'm getting some success here. Okay, let's pull that thread. And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, cool. And it sounds like from what you're saying, actually, or what you were saying earlier, that when you work with clients, you actually have contacts at those businesses who know what they're talking about in terms of web dev. It's as if they've got some kind of internal team and you're a kind of addition to that, which sounds really cool, because most of my experience freelancing, I was working with people who wanted me because they didn't have anybody at all in-house who had any of those skills whatsoever. But you're finding, and maybe that's just a question of as you get bigger and take on bigger projects, I don't know, but you're finding the opposite.
It's definitely a mix. We have a client right now who, they barely know how to share on Facebook. So it's like, okay, we have to treat those people differently. And what I say is when you're doing freelancing, you really are a solutions architect, really. So, not to just get wordsy with it, but like quite literally you're looking and saying, okay, these people need some help with this. I've gone to a very small business locally here and we've like actually in their words, we've completely revolutionized their business by ensuring that their Google My Business card was correct. They were getting something like, I mean, this is years ago now, so don't quote me on the numbers, but it was something like they were getting 20 calls every 2 months or something like that. And then I can see their stats now, and they're getting 98 calls some months. So it's like, to them, like, they even called me and they were like, this is awesome. Like, this is crazy. So like, you are a solutions architect in that way, where it's like, yes, I made them a website, but I did notice, and I was like, you know what, like, this is a particular business. I'm not going to name it, but like, this is a particular business where people have to go there, and like, the GPS coordinate is wrong. And if someone, asks like their car navigation, which is typically through your phone, if somebody asks the car navigation to take them there, they're going to the wrong place. And so they're probably getting there if they're finding it at all, and then they're taken off. Or in the one case, the Google My Business card, like I said, was inaccurate, so I had to go fix it. So you really do have to be a solutions architect and be like, okay, I'm a web dev, but like, these people don't know what like social media is. And so they may be asking me a question that's actually a social media question. Like, how do you post? What they'll say commonly is like, how do you post like a picture? And I'm like on your site? And they're like, well, maybe I kind of want it to show up on my wall. And it's like, wall? Okay, Facebook. So some people are at that level because they're like, they're a welder or something. Like, they're not a they're not a digital creator or anything. Sure. But then I guess it also is in the vein of a solutions architect, is sometimes you'll find a team where they're like, our designer knows HTML, CSS, JS, but you know it way better, and we have too much design work for them, so they don't have time to be doing the web dev. Can you fill the slot? And solutions architect right in there. Yes, I can be the slot. I can be the liaison between departments if you need me to be, things like that. And then we've also been in a situation is where we've actually trained people. So we've worked with a graphic design partner like a while ago, for a while, I should say, and they decided to go the route of a no-code tool. And basically they just said, we don't want to like completely abandon you. We want you still here, but we actually want our team to be able to do more, so that, they're not calling me, I'm queuing the job and things. Like, they want to be able to do it kind of more on the fly. So I trained them up on the no-code tool, and I acted as consultant. And so like the freelance industry, especially once you get in there, and as you said, grow as well. But once you get in there, you do jump around a lot, and you start charging for more things. Like, I've started charging for training, whereas before it was like, oh, I'll just help you like edit your site. But now it's like, oh, this person, needs to know where to edit the phone number in the Google My Business card and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So there, more opportunities, I guess, just come. Do you find, I think we should probably make this the last question because we've gotten slightly over time already, but I just wanted to ask you actually about no-code solutions. Do people that you're training, do you think they're actually managing to get everything that they need from their website from a no-code solution? I mean, my feeling is that those things, they're never quite, unless you're doing something very simple or very bland, they're never quite the complete promise that their marketing makes them out to be. But maybe you know differently.
So honestly, like I mentioned earlier, I deal with the small to medium business clients, and most of the time they request something toward the lines of a no-code tool. Or sometimes they'll ask for the no-code tool by name. Like, I've been straight up called and been like, hey, we've been Googling this and we want to update, our site, or we want to make a new landing page. We've seen Webflow, we've seen Wix, we've seen Squarespace. What do you think? And then you kind of act as consultant there. So I've been asked directly. If you have a big marketing team, a big publishing team, more specifically, I've been asked again, straight up, hey, I need a new website. It must be WordPress. And WordPress isn't, by default, I suppose, a no-code tool. But they're like, it must be WordPress because our team is trained in WordPress and our data is in WordPress, and we do not want to train our blog writers, our content writers, anymore. Now, the thing is I think you are 100% correct in that when you work with a software, you are pigeonholing yourself into that software. And so you may need 15 features and they have 10. The great thing is, though, is a lot of what I do is I actually work almost exclusively with no-code tools, but a lot of my job is coding up new tools that work with the no-code tool to expand the no-code tool. So I'll go in and be like, okay, you go type this into the CMS. It won't generate a new slide, but I'll make sure it does. I'll like make a new interface where you just use the CMS like you would. I'll put in some helper text on the fields, and I'll make sure that when you press publish, the public sees a new slider, for example. So like that's honestly like about 90% of my work is like I do a lot of no code stuff. And honestly, a lot of that too comes down to budget. If a company is like a smaller local business, or if they're a company that let's say, for example, we had a client who just needed to post documents once a year because they were an accountant, and they're not actually advertising on the site. It's just sort of like when they're in the meeting with somebody, like they already have their client base. They go, hey man, you need to fill out, form 1, 2, 3 and whatever for taxes this year. Go to my website, my website, whatever, /forms/2024 and find it. And so they ask me like, hey, can you set that up? Because I just want to tell my clients to go download that. Mm-hmm. And so that is a little more bland, like you were saying, but that's exactly what they need. That's all they care about. They're not, writing blog posts and like trying to find, 200 more clients. They're a 3-person accountant office. And if they got 300 more clients, they would be calling for help.
Okay, that's interesting. So much actually of that sector of the industry is aiming for no-code solutions, but still need people. So, I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just an evolution of the industry, I guess. But it's I guess it shows where you have to keep developing your skills if you want to go down that route. Obviously, freelance and that kind of agency work is something that I personally totally understand, because I did used to sort of be my own boss, and there's a lot to like about it. And yeah, I guess obviously not for everybody. I think probably most people that express an opinion, well, when we ask, most people want to work for a fan company actually, but vastly more people than ever can, I guess. But yeah, most people are looking for employment over starting freelance. But certainly we have had some students at Scrimba become very successful at freelance, and a few be successful even on Upwork and things like that. But yeah, I guess those are a little bit more the exception, but definitely a freelance career is surely doable in most parts of the world. But Matt, that's been really, really interesting, actually. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there, a lot of useful stuff. So I hope people have taken all of that on board. And if not, well, they can catch up, because it's on YouTube now. And again, sorry to people that didn't pick up on it being on YouTube. I think next week I will maybe have to highlight that a little bit more forcefully. But it looks like we had a decent number of people here anyway. Just maybe say a few quick hellos. I know Joanna Schneider, it's the first time you're here. Good to have you here. That's my friend actually in Germany. And we've got a few other new people here as well. And we will be back next week at the same time. And next week, honestly, I don't know what we're talking about on the town hall, because I haven't planned it out yet. As far as I'm aware, we don't have a guest. So we might be talking a little bit more about the AI stuff that's going on at Scrimba or something along those lines. But I will, of course, keep you posted. But until then, just once again, massive thank you, Matt, for joining us. Thanks for all of that. Really, really cool. And I do hope people will check out the podcast. I have put a link in the chat. I might as well just drop it in there again. I'm just linking directly to the website. Actually, I guess that's the easiest way you can pick up that, obviously on whatever platform you normally get your podcasts. But if you've got the website, you've also got access to Michael LaRocca's articles as well. But yeah, great to have you. Thanks for giving us an hour of your time, and hopefully see you again.
Yeah, of course. It's been a great time. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you very much. Cheers, everybody.